Hi everybody, welcome again to Freedom Project, and really pleased to bring you again, once again, Trevor Loudon. It's an honor to have him here. It's a great pleasure to talk to him. He has the skill, the knowledge, the research, the ability to present his ideas in such a way that really makes him an important voice. And while we have him here in Wisconsin, we want to take a little time and talk about education. After all, we are primarily a school at Freedom Project, and one of the interesting things about Trevor is he grew up in New Zealand, and for many Americans, New Zealand is like Australia. It's a very romanticized place, helped by the beautiful scenery we saw in the Lord of the Rings movies. And yet, there's this tendency for Americans to think that somehow the Australians, the people from New Zealand, tend to be a little bit more conservative, perhaps, than our Western European allies. And educationally, we have this, I think, misconception that perhaps there's a little bit more sanity there than you'd find in other industrialized nations. And I think, Trevor, you can talk a little bit differently about that. Tell us a little bit about your growing up in New Zealand and what the schools are like.
Well, look, when I grew up in New Zealand, the schools were still in the 60s. They were still relatively sane. And most young kids would leave school at 15 or 16 and do an apprenticeship and become a tradesman, qualified carpenter or boilermaker or mechanic or whatever. And about 15% of the kids would go to college. And the colleges were still relatively sane. In the last 20 years, the apprenticeship system is completely destroyed. We have a version of Common Core there, we call it unit standards, where kids are basically taught to think like monkeys. You know, the classical education is you learn math and geography and history and science, physics, and you learn how the world works and you learn how to think. Common Core is like, unit standards or Common Core is like training monkeys. You do a little task and you get a banana. You do another little task, you get another banana. And it's compartmentalizing knowledge. There's no overall understanding of what you're doing. You're becoming like a little trained monkey to be part of the big machine. So that has completely infected our schools. We have some homeschooling in New Zealand, but you still have to teach to the state curriculum, which means you have to pay for it all and take the time to do it, to teach you, to indoctrinate your kids the same way the state would. So New Zealand socially is way, way to the left. All the social battles, the left-wing social battles have been won. Our conservatives would fit very comfortably as liberals in California. So although New Zealand is a beautiful country, the people are friendly, it's a wonderful tourist destination, if you're an American conservative, it would drive you nuts, absolutely nuts. And when President Obama got elected, we got all these American conservatives coming down here for a safe haven. And now we notice that when President Trump got elected, all the liberals are coming down for a safe haven. But it's not a safe haven. The Chinese are knocking on our doorstep now. We're all worried about that. So are the Australians. If America goes down, we become part of their empire. And so save America and come down and visit New Zealand for a holiday, but don't think you can escape and go down there and be safe, because if America goes down, New Zealand is far from safe.
You mentioned something really interesting. Back 20, 30 years ago, only about 15% of New Zealand kids went to college. It must be, I've talked to a lot of foreign visitors to this country, and one of the things that amazes foreigners when they come here is that there's a college almost in every county.
Yeah.
There are colleges, community colleges, there are big universities scattered, I mean, all over this country in overwhelming ways. You go to Europe and you go to places like New Zealand, there aren't that many. And so 20, 30 years ago, maybe 15% of New Zealand kids go to college. Has that number been ratcheted up significantly?
Yes, it has, because now it's becoming like America. See, it becomes a racket. When you get government funding of student loans, colleges make a lot of money out of it. It becomes an industry. It's nothing to do with education anymore. It's a giant racket. And so, and you know, you imagine if America had said 20% of kids went to college and 50% went to trade school, we could actually find plumbers and tool makers and people to do real jobs. You know, and people, instead of having massive student loans in comparative psychology that could never pay them back, could actually become a boilermaker or a gas fitter or a diesel mechanic and actually make money, you know, at an early age and get independent and get established. I think that the overemphasis on college in America has been to America's detriment. And college is the finishing school for the Marxists. It's where you are indoctrinated fully. They've got hold of the colleges, they've fully indoctrinated people, and now that they're confident in that, they're bringing the indoctrination down into high school level, grade school level, even beyond that. So I would love to see the end of federal student loans in the country. That would make a big impact. A lot of these scam colleges would just fade away. And I'd love to see the abolition of the Department of Education, so all college became local. And I'd love to see a lot of these community colleges closed down and be turned into trade schools, where people could learn valuable skills without the indoctrination that goes with it. I think that would have a tremendous impact on your country and on any country that goes that way, really.
You know, in this country, the Europeans took a lot of hits because it was much harder to get into college. The more hierarchicalized class structure in Europe, in England, for instance, most kids knew they weren't going to college. You either had to be of a certain class or you have to be unusually gifted. The European schools tend to whittle kids out with testing much sooner, and so you have a smaller group going to college. That's changing too. I think unfortunately the European countries, places like New Zealand, Australia, they've realized the success American leftists have had by forcing kids into needless college. Our student loan debt in this country is over $1 trillion. And we know those kids aren't going to pay it back. What they are going to do is vote for a Bernie Sanders someday because he's going to give them free tuition.
It's pushing you down the socialist road. It's like Cloudwood Piven. It's overwhelming the system with useless courses, indoctrination, getting people heavily in debt. You know, people who want to take down America, they don't want a whole lot of well-educated, independent, debt-free people running around, because those people don't vote their way, and they can bring up their own families and teach them as they want to, and teach them their own values. You have to have a big bureaucratic system that sucks everybody in, indoctrinates everybody it touches, get people loaded with debt, get them out into the workforce with very little prospects, instill a sense of hopelessness and destabilization. This is all revolutionary process. This has nothing to do with education. And because you are offering money for this, you have businesses buying into it. You have businesses, making money out of this, just like they do the global warming scam, just like they do Common Core. There is money to be made. So they unite the business community with the globalists and the socialists, and the kids that come into it get screwed, get destroyed every way. They come out with a useless education, a lot of indoctrination, and a lot of debt. And that's no good for anyone.
No, because what that means is you're willing to trade all that burden for more government control, the burden of liberty.
Absolutely.
As we talked about when we talked about the Antifa, we now understand that we are in a very dangerous stage. What used to be really harsh anti-American, anti-conservative, anti-Christian rhetoric 25 years ago is now spilling out into outright intolerance and violence. We've got conservative speakers being hounded from campus. We've got school administrators who are defending the worst behavior of students, violence, the threats of violence, implicit and explicit. So we're at that sort of combustible stage. And so to what degree do you see the universities as simply complicit with these violent protesters, or are they, in other words, somehow the Frankenstein monster gotten bigger than its creator, or is this playing exactly into the hands of how university governance wants kids to behave?
Look, I think it's playing into the hands. You have virtually every major university in this country is controlled by the left, and I don't mean liberals, I mean hardcore Marxists. There are far more Marxists in American universities than there ever were in Russia, far more. So they are shutting down the speech of their opponents. They are getting rid of conservative professors wherever they can, and they're intimidating their own students. And if their students, and now they're getting so bold and so arrogant, they're so close to their goal of a final victory, they're getting violent because they know they cannot let this get away from them. A friend of mine uses the analogy, you've got a cup of coffee and it's full and you're moving it to put down, and as you get closer, your hands are shaking. As you get closer, your hand starts to shake more. Well, that's what the left is right now. They are so close to their goal, they're so urgent and desperate. Violence is coming out. They're less careful about their ideology now. They're showing their true face. So this is the time we have to fight back, because people are seeing what they are. It was hidden for a long time, but now the violence and the complicit nature of the universities, the mask is off now for many people. Now we have to fight back and push back and turn this thing around. We have to have a counter-revolution. And I think that can be done because, you know, the left in 2008, when they elected Obama, thought they had it all in the bag. And they went hard and fast, but they didn't figure on waking up the tea parties and the resistance that was out there. That shocked them. And that shocked them again when people dared to elect President Trump. So the left isn't having it all their own way. They are like, the analogy I'll give now is like in Vietnam, when the North Vietnamese were losing, when they were virtually extinct, they did in 1968, the Tet Offensive. They threw everything they could at their opposition, and the Americans smashed them, but it turned the tide of public opinion in America. They think, we can't beat these guys. Well, now the left are on a Tet Offensive. They know they're in trouble, they know their ideas are bankrupt, but they're getting violent and pushing everything they can into us in one last gasp to hang on to power. Now is the time to really push back, because they are weaker than we think they are.
And you mentioned that a number of parents have come to realize that the American government public schools are bankrupt, more moms and dads are homeschooling, finding alternatives, but there still seems to be this romantic association, as a post-war thing. It's American soldiers, GIs coming back on the GI Bill, and college now suddenly becoming available to all sorts of people it was never available before. There's this odd romanticization of the universities in this country. Much harder to break. That's much easier to demonstrate to parents how their middle school and high school is failing them.
Yeah.
But there is this romantic ideal with colleges. What can we do to get more American parents to recognize that this is not just the odd leftist professor who your kid might meet in an English class? This is the entire structure of the universities. And the premise is not to educate your kids, it's to indoctrinate them.
Yeah, well, it's a problem, because many of these, you know, this is a propaganda meme that's been going for a long time, and you're right, the romanticism of the GI Bill and all the people that pulled out of poverty. And at that time after World War II, it was great to get more people into college, because you needed engineers and scientists for the progress you had to make. But that's not the case. Now, these people are not learning hard sciences, they're learning indoctrination. And even the hard sciences are turning into indoctrination sessions. You have Marxist accounting now. You have socialist math.
Feminist biology.
Green
chemistry.
Right. So, look, I don't know the answer to that. I know that we have to get away from the bricks and mortars university. There are great things happening online now. Your own organisation is, I think, a way to the future where you can deliver high-class, high-quality education very cheaply online, remotely, you know, that families can afford. So I think what you're doing now is the model for the future. We have to bypass the bricks and mortar universities. Let them fail, and we have to push politically for the end of socialised student loans. We have to push politically for the abolition of the Department of Education. You know, those things. None of this is going to be easy. This has taken us 100 years to get where we are. But encourage homeschooling, encourage the things you're doing yourself, because ultimately these bricks and mortar universities are going to fail. They are not offering a good deal. And people know the money they put into them, and they're not getting the salaries in return to pay those loans back. So I think people will start voting for their feet on that one. And
a return to classical education is one surefire way to begin to turn this tide. Trevor, thanks for being with us very much today.
Appreciate it, Duke.
If you enjoyed that video, I urge you to consider joining our new Patriot Club at freedomproject.com. I'm Dr. Duke. Thanks for watching.